Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. The Maze of sets have been a fantastic source of nostalgic goodies, taking themes from the Duel Monsters era and giving them a new coat of paint. The Paradox brothers, Joey Wheeler, and Odeon have all gotten fun updates, and now it's time to raise up a duelist that is perhaps the most obscure of them all. Bones, Bandit Keith's crusty flunky, is known for two duels. The second is getting curb stomped / killed by Yami Bakura, but the first one introduced a card that would see play in the competitive scene for quite some time during the game's early days, and another that's been beloved by duelists for even longer. So let's dig up some grave dirt on this great Pump King with Call of the Haunted explained. Call of the Haunted is a continuous trap card that you can activate by targeting a monster in your graveyard and special summoning it in attack position. When this card leaves the field, destroy that monster, and when that monster is destroyed, destroy this card. While Monster Reborn is largely the superior card, it summons in either position and from either graveyard, without giving what you summoned a glaring weakness to back row removal, but does come with a number of unique elements. Being something you can play at quick speed means you can drop some trigger effects at times you wouldn't normally be able to. But the funniest thing is how it works with Xyz monsters, or rather, their material. If you overlay using a monster summoned by Call of the Haunted, that monster was not destroyed, but now there's no longer a monster tied to Call of the Haunted. So now it's just kinda hanging around, not doing anything. Which means if you can return your spell and trap cards back to your hand, you can scoop this up and get another use out of it. It's a pretty cool piece of tech, but doesn't hold a candle to how it worked in the anime. There, it was a spell card so you could use it quicker, that kind of set up a continuous effect forever, that reborned all your monsters all the time, turning them into zombies, and making them stronger every time they were put down. It's kind of a menace, but despite being a fraction of the power of the anime version, Call of the Haunted still made a huge mark on the game itself. So much so that it's getting an alternate art reprint with a very notorious modern hand trap, and really, what better honor could you bestow? The rest of the Bones cards from the anime aren't really worth focusing in on. They're largely normal monsters that get representation in the various new cards that we'll be talking about, which I'll be sure to point out as they come up. So that just leaves the question, what's the deal with the Call of the Haunted support? Well, beyond theming with the feature card, it's a lot of zombie pile good stuff, with the monsters among them all being dark zombies that fetch and or check to see if Call of the Haunted is around to enable their support, with a propensity for level 6 zombies to play along with the one older card I will bring up because you'll be seeing a lot of iterations of them, Pump King, the King of Ghosts, a level 6 dark zombie monster with 1800 attack and 2000 defense. It gains 100 attack and defense while Castle of Dark Illusions is on the field, and also, during your standby phase, if Castle of Dark Illusions is on the field, this card gains an additional 100 attack and defense, which activates once per turn for 4 of your standby phases, counting this as the first. Castle of Dark Illusions must be on the field to activate and resolve this effect, and if Castle of Dark Illusions is not on the field, those bonuses disappear and this effect resets. This is just so funny because Castle of Dark Illusions has nothing to do with Bones. That card is used by Panic, a completely unrelated duelist who focuses on fiend monsters, and guess what? Castle of Dark Illusions is the one with the zombie bolstering effect. Isn't that wild? It even does so over the course of 4 turns, which seems to be a reference to how long the boost was happening for in the anime, even though, once again, it wasn't Castle of Dark Illusions doing it, it was Pump King. Now, why is it like this? Honestly, I wish I could tell you. As far as I can tell, there's no official explanation for this, nor have any corrections ever been issued. So it's not like it was a localization error. Personally, I think that maybe there was a root issue where Castle of Dark Illusions was given Pump King's effect, and they might have chosen to completely swap them by giving Pump King the Castle's effect, but I'd certainly love to see exactly how they would mimic the Fog of War effect the Castle produced. So in lieu of that, they just gave Pump King something to connect to the monster that took its effect, but like I said, that's big speculation on my part. I'd like to think that the fact that Pump King gets its effect back in Duelist of the Roses is a sign that that was always meant to have that effect, but a big weakness of that is that Pump King and Castle came out in the same set, both in the OCG and TCG, so it's not like they committed to the Castle effect in one set, then had to scramble to recover Pump King in a future set. If this error did happen, it was one they knew about but decided they didn't want to fix, or for some reason or another, castle had been cemented before the other. Either way, it's an interesting little mystery that I doubt will get a definitive answer anytime soon. All I know is that it's called the Castle of Dark Illusions, and even though it was released 20 years before the type was codified, even though this is not itself an illusion monster, I still have to be mad that this card can destroy monsters in battle and can in turn be destroyed in battle. It's for the bit, you see. You must understand the bit. The bit is so important. Oh, and I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention that it's Bring Your Daughter to Work Day. And Pumpkin brought their special little princess, Pump Princess, the Princess of Ghosts, a level 3 dark zombie monster with 900 attack and 1000 defense. And if this face-up card is destroyed while in the monster zone, you can place it face-up in your spell and trap zone as a continuous spell instead of sending it to the graveyard. While this card is treated as a continuous spell by this effect, during each player's standby phase, place a Pumpkin counter on this card, and all monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense for each Pumpkin counter on this card. This is such a fun little twist on the original. Instead of buffing itself, it'll drag down everything else. Granted, it'll take a while for that debuff to get any real traction, and is vulnerable to any spell and trap removal, but get one or two of these active, and your opponent's monsters are going to get a lot less comfortable going on the offensive. And like, who would even want to? Look at how pretty she is. Truly, she's the unlife of the party. Okay, that does it for all the old stuff. Let's get to what's newly released in Maze of Muertos. Army of the Haunted is a level 6 monster with 2400 attack and 0 defense, and if you control Call of the Haunted and this card is in your hand or graveyard, you can special summon this card. And if this card is sent to the grave, you can target a Call of the Haunted in your grave and set it. This card is just a solid inclusion. With no restriction outside of what it asks you to activate, you get a sizable body, and because you summon it while you control Call of the Haunted, odds are that means you have another monster on the field to go along with it to perhaps, oh, I don't know, overlay? Did I perhaps bring up the Xyz summoning interaction for a reason that will become relevant later on? You'll have to watch to find out! The fact that it loops your Call of the Haunted is also pretty fierce, helping to make sure you get to activate it over and over again. As for the cast members, we're looking at Zombie Clown, Dragon Zombie, and Armored Zombie, which are themselves zombified versions of Crass Clown, Crawling Dragon, and Zonky. Hey, when are we getting some love for these critters right here? I know they got mulched almost immediately, but as long as we're going through the nostalgia mines, we might as well have some retrains to buff up a theme or two. Heck, I'll even take the zombie versions, I'm not picky. Oh, what's a defense point or two among friends? Great Mammoth of the Netherworld is a level 6 monster with 2200 attack and 1800 defense, and if it's special summoned and you control Call of the Haunted or a zombie monster except a copy of this card, you can target a card on the field and destroy it. And a zombie Xyz monster that has this card as material gains the following effect. It gains 1000 attack. This is going to be our spot removal for the theme, and it's very good at its job. Since it only needs to see Call of the Haunted, summoning it via that card is more than enough to get the ball rolling. And because it's a trigger effect, this does mean that you've got some quick removal on hand. Our next monster is also proficient at summoning this as needed, and can form a boss monster that will put this back into the grave, giving you another shot to use Call of the Haunted at maximum power. This monster is a retrain of the fusion monster, Great Mammoth of Goldfine, because that gold is looking fine. Though unlike most of our support cards, this only showed up in the second Bones Duel, so this has some premium Bakura aura on it, completely untouched by any Joey Wheeler shenanigans, which has got to be a bump up in value, right? Pumpkin, the King of Grave Ghosts, is a level 6 monster with 1950 attack and 2600 defense that you can reveal in your hand to set a Call of the Haunted from your deck or graveyard, and if you do, discard a card. And that set card can be activated this turn. If this card is special summoned, you can special summon a level 6 zombie monster from your deck, except one with 1950 attack. Also, you can't special summon from the hand or graveyard for the rest of the turn, except zombie monsters. So this has an absurdly good combo all by itself. By using its effect to set up Call of the Haunted and then discarding itself, it's primed itself to be summoned via that trap card. And look, you just special summoned it! Thankfully, the only level 6 zombie in the game with 1950 attack, or really any zombie for that matter, is other copies of Grave Ghost, so the rest are free to be summoned. Now, 1950 is a weird stat line, but this is Pumpkin after receiving its field power bonus from being played in a graveyard field from the anime and manga. At which point the mathematicians in the audience are typing in the comments about how 1950 is not a 30% increase from 1800, but in its original source material, it had 1500 attack, so, checkmate? I can say that now that Angeliki exists. Now, the key choices here would be Great Mammoth of the Netherworld for some removal, or Army of the Haunted to set up future plays, but remember, this gets any level 6 zombie monster. Pumpkin isn't the only one going in on that tactic. We'll save the specifics for the tech pick section, but trust me, we have some killer options in store. And really, right now all I can focus on is why Grave Ghost's mouth is full of leaves. First we started shaking things up with fiends via Castle of Dark Illusions. Don't tell me we're adding plants to the mix! So I'm telling you, I did not invite Ragnarok to this party. Stare of the Snake Hair is a level 6 monster with 1500 attack and 1200 defense, and you can discard this card to add a Call of the Haunted, or a spell or trap card that mentions it, from your deck to your hand. And if this card is special summoned, you can target an attack position monster your opponent controls, and that phase-up monster can't attack, its effects are negated, and it can't be used as material for a fusion, synchro, exceed, or link summon, which are permanent debuffs, so that monster is going to be locked out for a long time. This is a great summon off of Grave Ghosts to lock down a monster, or we can bring it back with the Call of the Haunted we searched for some more on-demand negation. And the fact that it searches out any of our related support cards is unreal, a huge boon to the theme if ever there was one. This card is a retrain of Snake Hair, a card that technically was around for the duel against Joey, but doesn't actually get played until the Bakura duel where it becomes material for the Goldfind fusion. At which point, that would be its second contacts because of the Medusa eyes. Wait, why is Medusa a zombie? That doesn't make any sense. Are we adding reptiles now? If I see an insect showing up here, I'm gonna be calling HR. That covers all the main deck monsters, and now it's time to tap into the extra deck. Pumpkin, the Great Ghost King, is a rank 6 Exceed monster with 2400 attack and 2600 defense, requiring 2 level 6 zombie monsters as material. While you control Call of the Haunted, your opponent can't target zombie monsters you control with monster effects. And if this card is special summoned, you can add a Call of the Haunted or a card that mentions it from your deck to your hand. And you can detach a material from this card, then target up to 2 cards on the field and return them to the hand. This is where we see the real intention the design team had when making these new cards. The interaction between Call of the Haunted and Exceed summoning was niche, but not unheard of. Duelists running the tournament circuit during the Duelist Alliance days will know that Teller Knights did everything they could to utilize those properties to the fullest, especially when Trevor entered the picture. And now, Great Ghost King is following in their footsteps. Summon Grave Ghost Pumpkin with Call of the Haunted, bring out another level 6 zombie, then overlay the two for Great Ghost King. This leaves you with a Bear Call of the Haunted, which you can return back to your hand with Great Ghost King's effect, or just keep it around to provide you with the monster protection that Grave Ghost gives out while it's active. But I'm sure you won't have too much trouble reactivating it to bring it back online. This makes for a surprisingly sturdy boss monster that handles a variety of roles, all while looking incredibly dapper. When was anyone gonna tell me that pumpkins could grow a moustache that grand? The Undying Legion is a rank 7 Exceed monster with 2700 attack and 0 defense, requiring 2 level 7 monsters as material. Though, once per turn, you can also Exceed summon this card by using a rank 6 zombie Exceed monster you control, transferring its materials. During your opponent's main phase, as a quick effect, you can detach 2 materials from this card, or just 1 if the only materials that it has are Exceed monsters. Then target an attack position monster your opponent controls, or a monster in their grave, and attach it to this card. Of all the cards in this set, Undying Legion feels the most tacked on. Like, it's a good effect, being able to Silent Honor Arc your opponent as an interrupt is solid, and it does keep playing into the theme of how Call of the Haunted interacts with Exceed monsters. The condition that allows you to only pay with 1 material seems like a scenario that would come up after using Call of the Haunted to bring back an Exceed monster. Normally kind of a waste since it won't have any materials, so Undying Legion gives it a pretty good option. By slapping it on top, you get to remove the connection and you still get some utility out of it, but it only really has that one effect, and it's only barely stronger than your other cards. It just lacks a lot of the impact that our other options have. Probably doesn't help that despite being a Bones-centric theme, it's clear just how much the little shrimp was defined by who he fought. For this card, Joey is taking the stage. These nostalgia cards have taken to redrawing old manga panels for their art, but this time it makes some changes. Originally, this was another shot of Clown Zombie, Zombie Dragon, and Armored Zombie, but now they've been replaced by Joey's monsters that were destroyed during the duel: Tiger Axe, Red Eyes Black Dragon, and Flame Swordsman. It's a pretty nice touch, but does continue to reinforce just how much of a glory hound Joey is. That guy has been in more sets than I can count, with 100 different permutations, and he still can't help but crash someone else's party to show off their cards. And I want to keep being mad about that, but instead, I'm gonna focus on something that makes me even madder. We've seen what a zombified Red Eyes Black Dragon looks like, and this is not it! Can we please conserve some continuity between our disparate random card storylines? Please? Alright, that's all the monsters, now it's time for the spells and traps. ECTOPLASMIC Fortification is a normal spell card that has you activating one of two effects. One, if you control no monsters, add a level 6 zombie monster or a copy of Call of the Forgotten from your deck to your hand, or two, give all your zombie monsters a 400 attack boost, then draw cards equal to the number of Call of the Haunted that you control. So, both of these effects are pretty wild. As an early game piece, this gets you Grave Ghost Pumpkin, and we've already seen what that can do on its lonesome. Call of the Forgotten is a card we'll get into shortly, but it's certainly not a bad alternative, and plays well with the second mode. Using a lot of Call of the Haunted means you're likely to have a lot of zombies that could use a good attack boost, and the more you're committed, the more cards you'll be rewarded with. But the biggest weakness here comes from being in an in-between spot. Only getting the search while you control no monsters means you can't tutor up a solution if you've got a board already set up, and if you don't have any Call of the Haunteds available, you're going to start losing card advantage quickly. And while a 400 point boost across all zombies can be terrifying, applying it to only one or two isn't going to change the scales in most cases. The opportunity cost on this card is high, but considering the deck, I think it's well worth the inclusion. And honestly, I prefer it over regular ectoplasm any day of the week. Fortified ectoplasm has all the delicious nutrients a young shambling corpse needs to hunt down the flesh of the living. Vortex of Time is a quick play spell card that you can activate when your opponent activates a normal or quick play spell card or effect, or any monster effect, while you control a zombie monster and a Call of the Haunted, except during the damage step. Your opponent tosses a coin, and their activated effect becomes the following effect, depending on what it lands on. If it's heads, your opponent must banish a monster they control, or tails, you must banish all monsters that you control. This one's a bit of a doozy. So Joey tries to hit Bones with a good old time roulette go, and this duel is one of the times the young duelist's luck runs out on him. For our purposes, this turns into a kind of negate. No matter what normal spell, quick play spell, or monster effect your opponent uses, it'll always turn into one of these two removal effects. So if your primary goal is to stop your opponent from setting themselves up with a powerful play, this will always do the trick. It's the coin flip that determines if you have to pay the price, or if your opponent does. And even in the worst case scenario, you still have some control over it. This is from their perspective after all, and the heads effect says that the opponent has to banish a monster that they control, which means that you have control over what gets banished. Your opponent never gets a say in it. So if you keep a jobber on your side of the field that you don't mind throwing into a different dimension, this card doesn't have any downsides. And on the upside, a card they meant to use to either get into the game or stop you from doing your own shenanigans, wiped their entire board. I can't imagine a more hilarious scenario than that. And heck, I know several zombies nowadays that love being banished, so it's almost like an enabler. Kind of, in a weird way. Which, to be fair, is just par for the course when Time Wizard gets involved. Call of the Forgotten is a field spell card that, when activated, lets you set up to 3 Call of the Haunted from your deck and or graveyard, and if you do, until the end of your opponent's turn, you can't special summon except zombie monsters or monsters from the graveyard. Once per turn, if you activate Call of the Haunted, you can target a monster your opponent controls and send it to the graveyard. Wowzers, that's some setup if I've ever seen it. Getting 3 Call of the Haunted just lets you set up a lot of summons, which you can then utilize in a number of different ways. The most obvious might be to fire them all off the next chance you get to flood your field full of monsters, but remember that Call of the Forgotten's trigger only goes off once per turn, so if you want to make the best of the removal, you're going to have to use one a turn. And yeah, it's wild that we get another piece of removal stapled onto our Call of the Haunted plays. Between this and Great Mammoth of the Netherworld, we'll be cleaning up opposing boards left and right. And like with Call of the Haunted, it might be a good idea to use your effects to bounce your back row on this as well. That way you can activate it again and get all of your calls back to do it all over again. This card has some serious potential, with the only major downside being how telegraphed it is. Without the ability to activate them the turn that they were set, our opponent will have plenty of time to formulate a counterattack, as well as know exactly where those calls are hiding. And you can't really count on your opponent being forgetful all the time. Deadly Zombie Breath is a normal trap card that you can activate if you control a zombie monster and Call of the Haunted to target a monster your opponent controls and send it to the graveyard. And if you control a zombie monster, you can banish this card from your grave, then target a face-up card you control and a face-up card your opponent controls and send them to the graveyard. But you can only use one effect per turn and only once per turn. This is one I'm a little sour on. The on-field effect has the same requirements to activate as Vortex of Time, but instead of getting a pseudo-negate with some strange side effects as your reward, this one is just some straightforward removal, something we're getting plenty of between Great Mammoth and our field spell. The grave effect is honestly cooler, substituting the need for Call of the Haunted with sending one of your face-up cards to the grave. And I don't know if you noticed, but we're a zombie deck. That's where our cards thrive. This can send an Army of the Haunted to recur another copy of Call of the Haunted. It can set up Great Mammoth or Grave Ghost for another summon. It's got a lot more shine to it than its first effect. Now, I may be blowing this out of proportion. Call of the Haunted can bring back a zombie, so the amount of cards needed to fulfill this restriction is less than what it seems on the tin, but it still adds some wrinkles without adding anything more to make it stand out amongst the glut of other support cards. I would very much consider running Shiranui-style Swallow Slash over this. But hey, new monster alert, we've got an appearance from Koji Kosi, which, hey, this is another redraw art, but this should be Axe Raider. What gives? Am I being Mandela'd for something I never had any memory of to begin with? Oh, I've been playing too many Shadow games. Alright, so that's all the Call of the Haunted cards, but what do we do with them? Well, we are talking about a big zombie pile here, and that has a lot of support. But we're going to try and talk about some more specific tools. If you've watched enough Explained episodes, or heaven forbid, played enough Yu-Gi-Oh!, you know about Mizuki, you know about Book of Life. General zombie stuff can be good, but here, we're going to try and focus on level 6 zombie shenanigans. And if there's anything that can help tutor or protect continuous trap cards, all the better. Turns out we might have a couple that could use the assist. So what can we play to help them out? Changshi the Spiridao is a very stupendous summon off of Grave Ghost, giving you another foolish burial of a zombie with the possibility of summoning itself again when banished. And hey, didn't we just talk about wanting zombies that benefit from being banished? Officiating Reverie is another of those TCG exclusive cards that sneak into a core set that's basically meant to be mainline support for one theme or another, and Pump King is the benefactor this time around. This monster has a way to jump out of the hand, great for making sure high-level monsters don't rot in the hand, and has the potential to loop your zombie Xyz monsters forever. If your Xyz monster goes to the graveyard, you can banish this to bring a zombie back from the grave, and the turn after it's banished, you can attach it to a zombie Xyz monster that you control. So if you revive your zombie Xyz with Reverie, it can go back to being material, and if that Xyz monster dies with that as material, it'll immediately bring that Xyz monster back by banishing itself, and then it'll keep going and going until someone breaks the loop. They also showed up with Officiator of Doom's Samuel, an absolutely wild card that's zombie revival and negation wrapped up into one, as long as you're summoning powerful monsters. The first theme that comes to mind when talking about level 6 zombies is Vampire, and Red Baron is a highlight, because they can swap one of your monsters for your opponent's, at which point you've got some silly options to make that effect a little more one-sided. Army of the Haunted has 0 defense, so as long as you share it while it's in defense position, it's stupid easy to run over. Heck, do it with Red Baron and you can bring it back without even needing to use its own effect. Or you can use Great Ghost King to bounce whatever you donated to your opponent. And all that stealing can help make some other juicy Xyz monsters. Dampier Vampire Sheridan will treat anything that you control owned by your opponent as level 6 to make this, and now you have a monster that's removal that can steal even more monsters. And while it's not specifically 6 related, the Zombie Vampire is another great monster we can funnel our stolen goods into. This time, treating cards that we control owned by our opponent as level 8. With this, we can fill our grave with even more goodies, and steal more monsters. Truly, it is a monster mash. Another zombie theme that loves the number 6 is Vendread, and Scar of Vendread is as good a target as any. It nabs you a Vendread spell or trap card when sent to the graveyard, something that it'll definitely do as Xyz material, and all these level 6 zombies make for fantastic fodder for all the ritual spells that can banish zombies to summon our resident evil hero. This next card falls into a more general pool of zombie support, and dare I say, more zombie world-centric, but I feel like I can't make an episode about Pump King without mentioning the Death Spirit walking around using its gourd as a skin suit. Shakabolin is another easy-to-summon monster, only asking for a discard, and from there we'll just keep summoning out zombies from your grave during each opponent's turn. or zombies from your opponent's grave. We aren't likely to be playing Zombie World in this variant since Call of the Forgotten grants so much value, but hey, you never know when a random shambler is going to show up in your opponent's deck list to take for yourself. Another way to quickly deploy your Call of the Haunteds while recovering any that have been stranded in the grave is Booby Trap E. Plus, when you play it, you get to say booby, which is a big plus for me. As for a silly tech pick, another way we can get back our Call of the Haunted without indulging in saying the word booby, which why wouldn't you, is Cardin the Clear-Sighted. On normal summon, you can bring that Call of the Haunted right back to the field, and activate it immediately, and if sent to the graveyard, your face-up trap cards are safe from your opponent's effect destruction until the end of the next turn, which I think is a huge plus over cards like Imperial Customs, because that takes up a zone, and we're going to be choking up our back row with, hopefully, 3 Call of the Haunteds. And that's all I've got to say about Bones' new cards. As with all zombie support, the potential of these cards is through the roof. Decades of cards meant to give these walking meat puppets every method of play under the sun means that we're swimming in options. And while I won't go so far as to say that there's some secret variation that has the potential to take over the meta should only the most dedicated duelist unlock its occult secrets, I do think a theme that is geared towards summoning so many powerful monsters in quick succession, paired with a wealth of removal and utility options, has a way to combat threats that most rogue decks would kill for. It's just waiting for you to make the right call. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Is Call of the Haunted about to rise from the grave again, or does it still need a few more cards to pumpkin patch things up? And which one's your favorite? It may be a little bland, but there's something about Army of the Haunted that keeps drawing me in. Let me know your favorite down below, and as always, please sure to like the video if you liked it, subscribe so you don't miss an episode, be sure to check out one of my videos in the sidebar to help me show up on your homepage, and be sure to share this video with somebody you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode is brought to you by Dragon Shield. Get the sleeves as strong as dragon scales and save 5% on your order by using the coupon code GoldenNova at checkout while helping out the channel. It was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commanders, Upstairs Media and Ignavius, Nebula Navigators, 3rd Dynasty, Adam Zajdel, Ancient Wizard, Andrew Newman, Battle Axe, Beastsman, Charlie Mercury, Christopher Fuss, Clockswork, Eric, Frankie, Great Big Pillock, Groog, Hairbear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Iron Zero, Iskander 711, Japan Man, Carp, Marion James E. Bacata, Meme King, Muse Clark, Neon Yaminair, Orozco 09096, Rebel King Lucifer, Red Eyes Jackalow, RJ the Jank Monarch, That One Dumbass, The Critic of Innocence and The Wizard Moose, Cosmic Crusaders, Animasta, Anthorak, Anything You Can Say, Blitzwolf, Chaz Ghost, Christopher Fuss, again, Cool Trainer Dark, Detenchi 67, Dr. Entity RIP, Drachenwald, Eki Bullock, Eva Padilla, Herbal D, Inblink, J.A. Flair, Julian Marquis, Kale the Dragon, Kryptonian Blurred, Lobomaru02, Manga Pages, Millennia Asta, Mr. Machina, Natiel Lee Alexander, Not Al Gore, Obsidian, Papa Cosmic, Puppycorn Game King, Rhyme Kairos, Rogue Wolf, Seraph SG, Shizuki Nijimura, Simic Toadstool, Stephen Huntsman, The Legendary Raven, The Queen of Time, Tiger X2476, Tristan O'Meara, Rider 2400, Zayden, Zaldreka, and Azentha, as well as all the lovely Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get my videos early, be a part of these credits and other awesome perks, it would mean the world to me if you would check out the link to my Patreon in the description or consider joining as a YouTube member. And if you'd like to see what our other level 6 zombie brethren have in store, check out this video talking about vampires. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.